Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm DIONNE Miller. It's a video that went viral all around the world. A worker at Jamaica Zoo getting his finger bitten off by a lion he was apparently taunting for the benefit of visitors. Now, in this evening's program, we're talking lions, we're talking zoos, we're talking Jamaican attitudes to animals. And our guest this evening will be Pamela Lawson, the Managing Director of the Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Joining us from California, we have Charlie Samot. He is President of the Monterey Zoo. Dr. Brianna Schrapp is with us as well, Vice Chair of the Animal Welfare Committee of the Jamaica Veterinary Medical Association, and also with us Diana McCauley, environmental activist. And want to remind you, you can tweet along with us. Our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. You can WhatsApp us as well. Our number is 876-381-0072. Please give us your first name, give us your general location. Before we dive into discussion, though, Giovanni Dennis has this report.
Paul Ferron, owner and operator of Jamaica Zoo in Lacovia, St. Elizabeth, is trying to move on from this incident. The injured staff is said to be recovering.
The person is being attended to properly, like basically this morning. It's as a public holiday. Most of the doctors are supposed to went in to get treatment. I was like, their hands on, make sure that he get sorted out. So good so far, he's recovering.
But even as the staff is being tended to, reactions have been strong.
Like I said, I consider it the height of stupidity. I think it's cruel and unnecessary.
I am not blaming the lion. You see, because if you don't put the finger through the fence, the lion can't bite it.
That was a stupid act. And so normally you pay for whatever you do. Simple.
Another video has since emerged online which appears to show a similar incident. It's concerning for the Jamaica Medical Vets Association.
It seems to have been a habitual taunting of these animals to get them to react and to entertain the public. So you're very disappointed because zoos are first and foremost for conservation, therefore education, and therefore the well-being of animals.
Teasing animals, she insists, is not part of the standards of care for any animal anywhere.
It just feels like we've had so many incidents recently that have kind of shed a light on how much we need to address the issue of animal welfare in this country. You know, we have a Cruelty to Animals Act, which a lot of people don't know about, that there is an act with laws of how animals should be treated.
Dr. Osbill Watson is chief vet in the Ministry of Agriculture. He was part of a fact-finding team that visited Jamaica Zoo today.
There are guidelines as issued by the permits that they would have received in relation to the operation of the facility. And we want to ensure the public that we will investigate any matter of animal welfare abuse and to make sure that such incidents are not repeated. And if needs be, then the proper sanctions would have been put in place.
For Pamela Lawson, Managing Director of the Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the incident can be beneficial.
I think it was positive. I think it's also going to be a learning lesson curve for everybody. It's going to have a bit of a positive impact in the way we all deal with animals, especially when they're in attractions like the zoos, etc.
She also responded to calls for a lockdown of Jamaica Zoo.
For every action, there is a reaction. You can't just take up these animals and expect them to go somewhere else. There's nowhere to put them. So the whole point of today's visit is to help the operators of Jamaica Zoo to put things in place that will provide a healthy, proper environment, safe environment for the animals and for the visitors and workers.
But Dr. Schwartz believes someone should at least be held accountable.
We need to have a serious conversation and serious legislation to make sure that people who don't do what they're supposed to do by animals, whether, again, it's a lion, it's a horse, a cow, whatever it is, are punished. And that, you know, we see consequences for these things.
Mr. Ferron, in the meantime, says he'll work to avoid a repeat.
Moving forward, I will definitely try to work as usual, as we always work with NEPA and different agencies and stuff like that.
Okay, so NEPA has said that they're still compiling the report based on their inspection a couple of days ago. They have said, however, that there are some deficiencies, there are some breaches in terms of the license permit under which the zoo operates. The Tourism Product Development Company has also now come out and said that the entity does not have an attractions license, which it should have to operate. Now, let me just welcome all our guests. Thank you all so much for talking to us. Mr. Samut, I'm going to start with you if I could, and I'm going to add to what we've already seen and heard a story I found from 3 years ago in one of our local newspapers, The Star, in which the CEO of the zoo, Mr. Ferron, was quoted as saying that his zoo is different because of the interaction between visitors and the animals. He said, most places, this is a quote, most places you only see lions just lay down, and that is boring. However, at Jamaica Zoo, you hear them roar. You see them rush at you. So you feel the effect of a lion, which gets your blood pumping. Visitors, he said, can get as close as 8 feet from the lions. And then he went on to talk about crocodiles as well and said an attraction you won't get at other zoos is that you're able to hold a crocodile in your hand with their mouths open to take photos. Well, we're concentrating on the lions today. So let me ask you to start us off, Mr. Samut, based on what you've seen and read of this situation so far. Can you give us your perspective on what's happening?
First of all, that's not a lion roaring. That's a lion barking out of anger. That's a lion being provoked and coerced into being something it shouldn't have to be in captivity. That is not a reflection of the word zoo. It has nothing to do with the word zoo. And it appeared to be a protocol. It appeared as though it was something that was an intended behavior as a part of a show that was happening, because in the videos I saw, you heard people waiting for him to do just that. And then finally, I think it kind of defined an ignorance, because the show involved him sticking his finger in the lion's mouth as an entertainment sequence to see if he could get the finger out before the lion bit him. So there's nothing zoological about what I saw there. That lion, that's not roaring. Roaring sounds completely different. That's a very angry and justifiably angry animal being taunted.
I'm going to ask you to follow up on that point, because when you said it's not a lion roaring, it's a lion barking. Can you explain a little bit more for us what you mean?
A lion roaring is a completely different noise. It's a completely different sound. It's a beautiful sound. It's a sound they make at night, calling other lions to see where all the different lion prides are. In Africa, that's to make sure everybody is where they belong and not infringing upon another pride's territory. A roar is completely different. That's an angry bark, and you hear it when you get too close to their food. You hear it when they're possessive over something. You hear it when they're attacking. That's a sound you never really want to hear from your lions.
Okay, so that in itself should be a warning sign, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you hear that, you have a problem. And in most zoos, in any real zoo, when you hear that, you address the problem. You go see what's wrong, what in fact is making that lion make that noise. In this case, it was the keeper himself.
What is if normal is the correct word here, but what's the normal behavior? Because you work closely with lions, I beg your pardon. What's the normal behavior of lions in captivity?
Well, they can be content. I mean, we have lions in our zoo, and they even visit us up against the cage. And if they're content, they rub their manes up against the cage. They solicit relationship. If they're protective of something, they bark like that lion did, and the proper response is to back away and give them space. There's absolutely nothing correct about what was in that video, what the keeper was doing, his response to the lion's response to what he was doing. There was absolutely nothing correct about it. No zoo on the planet is going to defend what happened in that video.
Well, we certainly saw the reaction of the lion, but I think a lot of people were surprised hearing that this appears to have been a normal occurrence, that we hadn't seen some kind of action before. So does it appear to be perhaps an animal pushed beyond its limit, or what can we read into that?
Anytime you interact with a wild animal, you're asking that animal to surrender a certain amount of instinct. There's no two ways about it. And the question is, how much instinct is it fair to ask an animal to surrender? That's what it all boils down to. And yes, that went far beyond the scope of what was fair to ask that animal to surrender, the amount of instinct. He was poking it, he was prodding it, he was poking it in the face, he was sticking his fingers in its mouth. You know, I like, my favorite word is consequences. And that's what happened there. Consequences were served.
All right, we're going to continue in just a moment, but first let's take the break, do a little bit of business. Remember, you can tweet along with us. Our hashtag, it's TVJ All Angles. Soon come.